Pastor Terry. I'm doing well.
So for sure you guys don't want to come on the 27th?
Oh, gosh. You can ask him.
Okay. I just want to, because I was in asking you, I'm thinking, but I want to make sure that he knows that I did. And I'm just now,
I will tell him, you know, because he was called to be the pastor.
what's that?
I was just telling
Do you want this chair?
Something happened the other day, and I said to my husband, and that's why he did not call me to be a pastor.
Oh,
Because, you know, if I saw Gallagher, I would call him. But Pastor Dave is very great.
All right. Yeah, he's wonderful. He is a nice guy.
He really is.
Yeah. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Oroville, California, March 5th, 2019. We just are reconvening from closed session where direction was given and no action was taken. We stand for the flag salute, please. Salute. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Mr. Lando, could you make an announcement, please, before we begin?
A number of people contacted me regarding the council's position on the FEMA trailers, and that's actually the only thing on the agenda tonight, and I'm certainly not trying to discourage people from speaking, is based on the previous meeting the council had in the interests of the neighbors. The item on the agenda tonight would prohibit FEMA trailers in approved subdivisions. So I think there's some concern that in some way they're being allowed, and actually tonight all we're talking about is whether or not council would like to prohibit them in approved subdivisions. I just want to make that clarification. Thank you.
So what he's saying is we're in the process of adopting an ordinance that would not allow these FEMA trailers into subdivisions that have the infrastructure in and that are ready for houses to be built. So if you're here to, if someone has misunderstood the agenda and here to contest that, we just want to save you some time. Okay, moving on to presentations and proclamations. I have an Arbor Day proclamation. Is there someone here to accept this?
Gary Lehman will be accepting on behalf of Wade Atterbury.
Yes. What'd you get for trying to sneak out?
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Welcome to the city of Oroville. This is a proclamation for Arbor Day from the city of Oroville. Arbor Day has been observed throughout the nation and the world for 147 years, whereas arbor was derived from the Latin word for tree, and Arbor Day was conceived by newspaper editor and politician J. Sterling Morton, who proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas in 1872, this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas in 1909, California designated March 7th as the beginning of Arbor Day celebration to commemorate Luther Burbank's birthday, the great California botanist who was born March 7th, 1849. California observes Arbor Day concurrently with Conservation Week from March 7th through March 14th. Whereas trees are not just a source of beautification for our neighborhoods and parks, they can also reduce erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, provide habitat for wildlife, and trees are a valuable renewable resource. Whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, beautify our community, and can be a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Whereas this is the 39th year that the city of Oroville has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and the city desires to continue its tree planting program. Now, therefore, I, Chuck Reynolds, Mayor of the City of Oroville, in concurrence with the Oroville City Council, hereby proclaim March 7th, 2019 through March 14th, 2019 as the observance of the Arbor Day celebration in the City of Oroville, and urge all citizens to plant, care for, and preserve trees throughout our community to enhance the spirit and well-being for our present and future generations. Okay, we've been asked that item number 2 be pulled from presentations and proclamations. Our presenter is ill this evening, so. Okay, moving on to public communication, a hearing of non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
I have 25 speakers. I have Sherry Bunker, and then Bobby O'Reilly, and then Michelle Kahn.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I would like to first off thank the city for taking such prompt action on cleaning up the street appliances that we had in our city. I went by and did a quick check today, and they're off the street. There was one place that had a bunch of garbage in the yard. They've cleaned up the yard, but now it's on a trailer out in the street. So we're making progress. You had a question? I'll get to you in a minute. Second thing, I would like to invite everybody, put my hat on as a native son of the Golden West. We have our corned beef and cabbage dinner tomorrow night, 5:30 at Dunstone Hall at 4790 Foothill Boulevard. Everybody's invited. Let's see, next hat is the Exchange Club of Oroville. We have our Search for Talent on March 16th, and that will be at the State Theater starting at 6 p.m. We have a lot of talented youth that will be performing. And prior to that will be the Arbor Day Festival, and we will have, the Exchange Club will have a booth, and we will be having our Ugly Dog Poster Contest winners, and we'll have those pictures up there for everybody.
Thank you.
Could you tell me what the location of that property was? You had mentioned trailer.
Oh, no, it's a travel, flat
Okay.
trailer. It's not a house trailer, it's a flat trailer.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby O'Reilly, Michelle Kahn, and then David Dewey.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I've started a project. You guys got a handout from me. It's called Oro Love, and I'm just going to give a quick run through of what it is. You guys have the papers there that gives the detailed explanations. You can find this on Facebook, Oro Love, all one word. It's a grassroots citizen organization formed to care and support the Oroville area while also serving as a vehicle for change. Its main purpose is to enhance the beauty and the environment in which we live. Through community outreach, community projects, and visibility, Oro Love strives to make positive changes to our area. It will be accomplished by anyone who would like to participate. It will be supported by local organizations, churches, businesses, all in which to support the beautification of our great city. As an example, Oro Love will meet these objectives by cleaning up roadside debris that has been illegally dumped. You may also see volunteers with Oro Love out at cleaning up blighted places, parks, anywhere that we can get our hands on. It will be a free free and fun educational event. It's a volunteer event. There will be lunch provided, shirts provided. We will have signs that show this place was cleaned by Oro Love. It's basically a way to get our community working together so people want to come here, things look better, and we can all work together towards the same goal. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Michelle Kahn, David Dewey, and then Lonnie Frederick.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Michelle Kahn, I'm the lead docent for the Docent Association for the Museums, and we're talking to you today mainly because we have some major concerns about what's happening at the Lott Home. There was a leak there we discovered 2 years ago. The repairs have not happened, haven't occurred. I mean, there were bids put out, repairs have not been done, and now there's another leak in the Lott Home. And so that's why you have several speakers here to talk about this subject. And the other thing I wanted to let you know, I'm not sure you're aware of the volunteers, how many hours they put in. This last year, there's about 5,000 hours put on by the volunteers at the museum. We were, about 128 hours for cleaning this year. And so we're faithful attendants to the museums. We were concerned that one of our best examples of our history is being destroyed, and we would like something done quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Dewey, Lonnie Frederick, and then Janice Clay.
David Dewey, retired curator for the City of Oroville. Honorable council members, I'm here at the behest of your Oroville docents as the former city curator to make you aware of a critical situation at the Lott Home. Back in the 1960s, the city was entrusted with the care and preservation of the significant historic pioneers' family home. I want to commend the city for its care and preservation of this wonderful antiquity all these decades. About 2 years ago, it was noted the roof was leaking in the front area known as the nursery room. A tarp was placed over the area to await further action to repair or replace the roof. The city requested quotes for this repair, but the responses exceeded the funds available. The roofing situation has just become critical. The roof is now leaking over the south end of the home, with water dripping out of a bedroom light fixture. The leak is destroying the plaster ceiling, creating rot in the attic, and leaking into the electrical system. I don't need to tell you that water and electricity together is not a good thing. I am requesting that action be taken as soon as possible to correct this emergency situation by placing tarps at least over the areas of leak for the remainder of the rainy season. Second, to bring an action plan to the council on the April 2nd agenda. This will likely include preparation of requests for quotes to make appropriate repairs to the roof over the summer. Your swift action will literally save the lot home from damage that may be very difficult to recover from down the road. Again, I want to thank the council for your fiduciary faithfulness to preserve this wonderful gem for our community. I am confident you will respond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lonnie Frederick, Janice Clay, and then Ann Chamberlain.
Mayor Reynolds and members of the council, thank you. We're just really concerned about the lot home. It's been 26 months since the first leak happened in the nursery room, and a portion of the plaster ceiling fell down at that time, and that room has been closed off for the tourists during this time. It's been over 2 years, and now it's happening at the opposite end. And we removed all the artifacts out of the nursery, and the room that it's in now, where the leak is, it's a large bedroom with major furniture. And if all of that furniture has to be removed out of that room as well, it would be a major task, you know, involving the staff. And we work hard to keep the museums up and to have tours go through, and we're just proud of this home that's been built, and it's been 1857, I think, isn't it? Yes. That it was built, and there's few in Butte County that are that old, and it's a jewel for our city. So thank you very much, and we hope that you can take action on this roof that's badly needed.
Thank you.
Janice Clay, Ann Chamberlain, and then Randy Murphy.
Why don't we all come? We're all saying the same thing. We've got to take care of the lot home, and we have worked with we started with Wade Atterbury, and then we went to the Parks Commission, and then we went to the Planning Commission, and now I understand from a quick moment with Mr. Lehman that the proposal has gotten to the point where you're asking for bids. So I guess in essence, he is helping to us cure the problem. When the bids come in, then it will be taken care of. And so amazingly enough, after 3 years and 2 big leaks, it's going to be taken care of.
Thank you.
Ann Chamberlain, Randy Murphy, and then Bill Spear.
I'm Ann Chamberlain, a docent for the city of Oroville. We came not to raise the roof, but to put a new roof on. I was here in January to the planning committee, and I was so excited I went home. We'd even picked the color to put the roof. Please fix our roof. We need it so badly. And while I'm here, and while I still have time on the clock, I want to ask you all to remember that the docents are here. They give their time, and we do different events during the year, and nobody or very few people ever show up. Why? Think about that. Come to our beautiful museums and see what Oroville has to offer. We have lots, and we are very proud of it, and we want you to come and enjoy it with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Randy Murphy, Bill Spear, and then Victoria Sorling.
So I am not here to talk about the lot home. I'm here to, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I have a different message. Riverbend is open. It was open Friday. And we've had a lot of visitors. I was there on Sunday afternoon. There were probably about 100 people in the park. A lot of drive-throughs looking around, and it's exciting time. There's still some construction that needs to be done. It may be closed during the day, during the week, a few times in the next couple of weeks, but it will be open, hopefully permanently, assuming the river behaves itself, beginning on March 15th. And then the grand opening will be on April 6th. The Wildflower and Nature Festival will be held at the park at that time. We will have local dignitaries. You all will receive an invitation and do some kind of a ribbon cutting or ceremonial thing to reopen the park. I also want to announce on Wednesday next week, March 13th, the Feather River Group is organizing to clean up the riverfront along the city frontage of the river There are several camps that have been abandoned in advance of the anticipated rising of the river, and I think it's important that we get out and clean that up. So we're looking for some people to join us, Bobby, or whoever else that might be interested to help clean up. Again, March 13th, there's some significant camps there, and they need to be cleaned up. I've got a few photos that I will share with the council to help enforce that. Thanks.
Bill Spear, Victoria Sorling, and then Tammy Jones.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, really honored to be here tonight to sow into our community. And you know, first of all, I'd just like to say there are a lot of people in our city that really have a heart for our city, and Bill Legrone, our chief of police, you know, his passion. You know, I really appreciate your heart for our city and all that you do. We really have some fine employees that really care. A lot of different groups, churches, community groups that really have a heart. But you know, I come to also to try to make a difference in our city. And it says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land. So I come to pray. Father, I thank you for our city council and all our public servants and all the groups that continue to care. And Lord, we humble ourselves this evening and we petition heaven, Lord. We pray that you would open up the floodgates as it's raining in Oroville right now and getting ready for a change in season, that you would open up the floodgates upon our city, that you would raise up your sons and daughters to answer this call, that we would make a way for those who are suffering, make a way for those who are struggling, for those who are lost. We love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.
Victoria Sorling, Tammy Jones.
I'm in agreement with Mr. Spear too. We've got some really wonderful people in this community, and the docents. I remember being kids, we would ride our bikes downtown, and we'd go to all the museums, and there's just absolutely wonderful history. So I would encourage everyone to partake in that. And staff as well. We have a wonderful staff. Everything is going really well. This is a good crew that is working together. And if we're not seeing progress the way we think it should be, ask questions, because we'd love to answer them, because there's a lot of things going on. I personally, I know they'd have me doing about 100 hours a day if they could. So I only got 24. But thank everyone, staff and citizens. I think that we're on a good road here. So thank you.
Victoria Sorling, Tammy Jones, and then Mark Reynolds. Nope. Okay, Tammy Jones. Mark Reynolds.
I'm going to have Stacy speak on our behalf.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. We stand before you today as the Vista del Oro subdivision. We had originally come here to basically say our piece with how we feel about FEMA coming to our subdivision. But now we wanted to come here and thank you so much for your support, for answering all of our emails, our calls, and really stepping up and supporting us. And we truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I have Daniel Bickert. Heather Harm.
City Council. My name is Daniel Bickert. I've worked and lived in Butte County for the last 18 years, and I've lived in the Vista del Oro subdivision since 2009, and also now the our directions changed a little bit to thank you for putting the ordinance into place and considering our concerns in our little community out there. So thank you very much. It is appreciated, and I think that stands for everyone else in our group of the FEMA situation. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Heather Harm. Travis.
Thank you.
Bill Hurst. Bernie Cook. San Seichow. Armjeet. Wong Lee. Celia Heng. Steve Heng. Travis Stewart.
Thank you.
Hernetta has.
Many times. Thank you very much for taking
Okay, sorry. I don't want to butcher your name. I'm sorry. Yes.
Good evening. Of course, you see we're here in force, and we definitely want to thank you guys. I have been talking with Gary, and he's been excellent. Also, we have been talking with FEMA guys, Dave and Ryan, and we're just here because we know that you guys heard our voice, and we truly appreciate that, and thank you very much.
That was the last public speaker, Mr. Mayor.
That went faster than I thought. You know, before everyone leaves, I would like to thank all of you for being involved in your community. So that's how things happen. We need to be made aware of things, and we just really appreciate you being concerned citizens and taking your time to be here. Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, staff request to pull item number 2.
So looking for a motion to accept the consent calendar, pulling item number 2.
I move that we approve consent calendar exempt item 2.
I'll second.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. On item number 2, staff agrees with the recommendations provided by the Arts Commission. I think these are all great projects. We're asking to remove the Downtown Riverfront District item from this approval list and bring it back at the next council meeting. Some concerns have been expressed by various individuals regarding this, and they would like to have some more information brought to the council just for clarification of the project. So we still support the project. We think it's a good project. We just would like to bring it back with additional information to clear up any questions that might exist, which we will do at the next council meeting. So we'd like to have the items approved with the exception of the Downtown Riverfront District approval.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What are the concerns?
The concerns are who's going to maintenance the flowers that are going to be put up, how often are they going to be taken care of, how is that paid for?
They addressed that at the Arts Commission meeting, and there are businesses down there that plan to take care of them.
Well, I think that the concern that was expressed was, is that a long-term viable plan, or is there an alternative such as banners or something? I mean, I don't know. It was just, that was the concern, and you know, I appreciate that. I'm not against the project at all. It's just there was some concern expressed about that, and I thought it would be a opportunity for them to come and let you know what their long-term plan is to the whole council, if that's acceptable.
I'm in the queue. That sounds like a good plan. I think that's the best we're going to get. If we've got people that are wanting to take care of these things and you know, willing to step forward, I think that's a good start.
And this is completely council prerogative. If you choose to move forward on this, staff has no objection to that.
Okay. Yes.
Please come to the microphone.
Please come up.
Got to.
And while she's coming up, I just want to emphasize that Bill's the messenger that
Yeah, absolutely. We know that he's our information.
So the DBA and then hopefully the BID will be happening. We've agreed to put it in the 40% beautification budget that we're going to use the funds for. Is part of it is maintaining those flowers and everything, and the banners and all of it. So I just wanted to say that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there is a speaker also from the public.
Okay. Well, do we want to hear from the council first? I think they want to comment on this. Councilmember Goodson, please.
Chief, whose request was this pulled?
This was during discussion with a couple different council members.
So it was council?
Correct. Well, there was a concern about that asked to bring this back because it just would be more comfortable with more information is all.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah. So I'm the one that actually, one of the ones that brought this up. And being involved with and being a part of the that district, the BID district, our business over there, and being involved in the discussion process, I thought it would be good for that organization to identify this is a sustainability plan. One of my concerns in being involved in our community is that the ideas are often great, but sometimes we stumble on having a well thought through plan as to sustainability. Because for an example, you think about flowers, you think about those items placed out there, and a business closes, changes, moves. So what is the plan? And I think the BID has, since that was brought up, has the wherewithal to embrace that and handle it. I just would like to see that model presented, that plan thought through, so that when those things happen, and they will, that it's thought through so that we end up not having areas that are uncared for. And I think that in the long run would have a greater impact than the attractiveness. And I'm completely for the program. I want the organization to think it through to the next step as to sustainability for the flowers, how they're going to be watered when it's hot in the summer. It might take 2 different trips in a day to make sure that they're properly cared for. And so that was the reason that I brought this up and raised the question.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, since you are personally involved in this, do you feel that you should recuse yourself from the voting?
I have actually talked with counsel, our attorney, and because no, I don't need to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. There might be some other examples of the same thing. I know the city of Seattle, Eugene, Oregon, and Half Moon Bay have these similar plants, hanging plants, and those kind of things. It might be good to just Google those locations so that we have a similar plan that's working, and as similar cities that have hanging flowers, hanging pots, whatever the case may be. So, and obviously, I think we're all understanding that the city has very little ability to take care of them. It has to be the BID and those folks down there. So, I just want to say that up front. We just don't have the ability to do it.
I just want to add to that also.
Excuse me, Councilmember Draper's in the queue.
Oh, thank you. Well, to my way of thinking, we need to be careful about micromanagement. And, we really don't have to have a hand on every little project that's going on in the city. And I think these folks are thoughtful enough that they have already figured this out. And also, I have a concern about how much of a delay, we're talking about, because I was looking forward to seeing this project get started and actually be implemented. And then if we have to put the heavy weight of government oversight on every little thing, maybe that we're talking several more months down the road. So I would just like to put that out there that I think that they have a really good project. And I attended the Arts Commission meeting where they presented this, and I was really impressed. And I think that they're very capable people, and that they would do a good job. I don't think they're going to leave the city in the lurch on this or anything.
Community involvement is a goal for me, and I think it is for all of us, that we would all take part in something, and take part in something so positive is what an opportunity to work together. I am looking forward to that, and I know, not to misunderstand Council Member Smith, I know exactly how he feels. He's not questioning it. He's simply a detail man, and he just, I know it's got to work for him, but I know that he's on board for it too. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. This request was made by the Riverfront District, so kind of almost speaking out of turn when we're involving the BID. I would assume that the ODBA BID would then assume that responsibility, given that the Riverfront is kind of a loosely held group as far as an official capacity. So so because I'm aware of some of those internal workings, that I just thought it would be good to have an actual official organization assume that responsibility. I would have to say, if the rest of the diocese is comfortable with this moving forward, then I certainly would be. But I thought it was noteworthy to raise that as a question because of the organization dynamics behind the request. And that's it. Okay.
Thank you. Excuse me, you need to come forward if you want to speak.
No.
Into the microphone, please.
When we first started this, we presented it as a Riverfront District project, but since then, Riverfront District and the DBA have joined together, and as you know, are working on forming a BID. So it is all of us. It's the DBA that would be managing this project. Also, as far as the plants, the Oroville Botanical Club here has offered their assistance in helping us select the correct type of plants and to make a maintenance plan. And then we'd have businesses along Montgomery Street that would handle the watering. But like I said, the oversight would be done by the DBA to keep these maintained, the plants and the banners.
Great, thank you. I'm looking for a motion to accept item number 2 on the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion. Did someone else have a?
We do have a public speaker.
Oh, we do have a
yes.
public.
Michelle Kahn.
Mr. Mayor, while she's coming up, I just want that helps clarify for me, and because I was not aware of that dynamic, and that offers that level of comfort for me personally.
Yes, sir. Nobody's trying to put you on the spot.
Yeah,
I just know how your mind works.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're smarter than most of us, and I just know that you certainly smarter than me. Thank you.
Good evening again. It's Michelle Kahn, and I happen to be the chair of the Arts Commission. And I wanted to let you know that when we originally started, there was a $30,000 NOFA. And when we met for our meeting, we were advised by staff that we could allocate more funds out of that pot of money. And so as we reviewed the projects we did, there's 2 that are on hold and were not allotted money because they had to make some changes. But all of these projects were very good. We appreciated the projects, and we did ask the question about the watering, the maintenance of both the flag poles, the flags themselves, and the plants. And I kind of wanted to put a face on it. This is, me, as this is your art commission, and I think you should get to know who we are too, because so you know that we're working hard to do the appropriate thing for the city, and we liked all of the projects. They were the first time we allotted money, we had problems with the applications. This time the applications were all in very good order. And we appreciate that.
Ms. Kahn, I don't think anyone doubts the intentions or the integrity of the Arts Commission. It's a wonderful entity, and thank you for being part of it. Looking for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 8769, authorizing and directing the mayor to execute grant agreements relating to the Oroville Arts and downtown beautification projects.
I second.
Motion carries.
Moving on to public hearings.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I am Bill LeGros, appearing on behalf of Amy Bergstrom, who I think ran out home and is faking like she's sick because she didn't want to be here, but don't really know. Because, this is, public hearing. She didn't want to get up here. But anyway, we'll go over that more tomorrow, her and I. What we're here to discuss tonight is the First Time Home Buyers Program. What we have in here is this is the Home Buyers Program where we provide down payment assistance to first-time home buyers that are low income. The purpose for the assistance with the down payment is to make the homes affordable. Right now, our current limits on our program is $261,000 for the purchase of a home that has already been constructed, or $269,000 for a home that is, you can't build it yourself, but it is in the process of being built. There's permits pulled. It's like a spec house, and you purchase it. Right now, our limit for down payment assistance is $75,000. What we're asking to do with this public hearing is increase the limit to $100,000. The reason being is because the market is really hot right now. Prices are going up. People need additional assistance with this. We also have more money than what we can actually move from the granting agencies right now. So we are raising it to assist people to make the homes more affordable. So all we're doing is we're not changing the program other than changing our limit that we are assisting people with their down payments. We're requesting up to $100,000. This has been to the Loan Advisory Committee. The Loan Advisory Committee did recommend this. The Loan Advisory is made up of 2 council members and community members, and this has been brought to you. It has been publicly advertised, noticed, and this is our hearing for that to get input from individuals and directions from council.
Thank you. We have some members in the queue. Council members, Vice Mayor Thompson.
Good evening, Chief. Great program. Highly in favor of this overall. How much money currently is in the fund? 'Cause I know there was a season where it was actually, from my understanding, there wasn't any money in there. So there was. Is that correct?
We've received new funding for this. I believe we just received $1 million, and we've had close to $1 million in there. So we're running up on $2 million in this program.
How many people are in the queue for waiting right now?
I do not know the answer to that.
I know once in a while we get homes that go into default from the program. Do you know a percentage of that?
I do not know the percentage of that. I believe that it appears to be high because the only ones we ever bring back are the negative stories. We never bring back the positive ones. So, it appears to be high, but I think there are a lot of successes for this. It does make home ownership affordable and attainable for people that are marginally or challenged because of their income.
It is a great program. Obviously, I think most people who own homes know that there's a big difference between how renters treat a property versus how a homeowner treats a property. So owners and realtors always look at a percentage of home ownership versus renter ownership in a property in an area. So it's always great to have ownership. So I just had a few questions here, but I'm in support definitely of the program.
What this money also does is by affording this type of a down payment on these homes is the individual that purchased the home is able to avoid PMI, which is your private mortgage insurance, which costs you more each month for it. So it's a good program for that.
From what I understand, we've put a little more strict qualifications on this, so the failure rate won't be as high because they'll have to qualify with a credit score.
I believe it was probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2. The council probably a year and a half ago did change some of the qualifications for this because there was a program that had no minimum qualifying credit score, and the council did change that. They set a minimum. So the previous council did tighten up the restrictions on this loan program.
As I understand it, our default rate is less than 1%, just for your interest.
Councilmember Pittman's in the queue.
Yeah, real quick question. I'm certainly supportive of the program. As a result of the program in the past, though, we've had some housing inventory. Do we have any current housing inventory that we're in control of, or?
Currently we're in control of 3 houses that we have rented to victims of the Camp Fire. We have another 3 that we're bringing back into inventory, and we've depleted the rest of our inventory just recently.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Thompson. Councilmember Goodson.
Councilwoman Draper and I are on that committee, and if my memory serves me correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but that credit score, we changed it to 650. I believe it's 650. And to date, within the past 2 years, how many houses? Maybe 2 were foreclosed?
Yeah,
very
there haven't
minimal
been very many.
amount.
And the ones that we have recently foreclosed upon have not been because of credit scores or anything. It's been because not complying with other conditions of the program, like living in the property and such things.
Right.
We're looking for a motion.
I move that we adopt the resolution number.
Mr. Mayor, this is a public hearing.
Oh,
There
I'm
are no
sorry.
speakers, but if you could open and close the hearing.
Okay. So we're going to close the public hearing now and open it up for speakers. Is there a speaker?
There are none.
There are none.
No. I move that we adopt resolution number 8772.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, I like to move expeditiously.
There are processes and sometimes
Motion
they don't make
carries.
sense.
Yes, sir. Moving on to regular business. Item number 8, solar and energy project loan refinancing options. So we're looking at 3 options. Now, Chief, are you going to, or Bill, you going to give the presentation?
I believe Ruth Wright will be giving that presentation.
Ruth, can we hear on this, please?
Oh, okay. Good evening, Council and Mayor. We are looking at refinancing a solar loan. It's got a pretty high interest rate. We can reduce our interest rate and achieve a lot of savings, but I thought since we were refinancing, we might consider using some of our unused RDA bond excess money to pay it down and achieve even more savings. In the staff report, there's 3 options showing you how much savings you would get by earmarking more money towards buying down the loan. So it's really up to council. I just put the 3 options in there, but you could pledge any amount you want. You could do 600,000, or it's entirely up to the council if you want to refinance and put something
How much
down.
are we looking at saving by doing option 3?
Option 3 would save us $1,134,000.
I just wanted to say it out loud so we can all hear it.
And not only that, it shortens the term to 13.5 years.
Yes.
Right now, our term is 18.5 years.
Great. I'm personally looking forward to paying some of these things down. There's nothing like a cloud of debt to weigh on people. So I'm for this. I think that we need to step up with responsibility. Vice Mayor Thompson's in the queue.
Just a quick question. How much money is in the RDA fund currently?
Approximately $1.4 million.
I mean,
1.4?
Mm-hmm. I say approximately because we are earning interest, and so it changes daily, and we have earmarked for other projects, but that's approximately what would be left after we paid all our projects.
Councilmember Goodson.
So, in the event we opted for option 2, and that would reduce our RDA funding to approximately $500,000, but we
Yes.
would have a savings of over $600,000.
Yes.
That
Yes.
sounds really nice.
Yeah.
But it's up to 7.
And the
7
reason why this
votes.
qualifies for the excess RDA bond proceeds is because it will benefit the whole community by having our solar project in, and it just benefits everybody. So
Right.
this would be general fund dollars too that we save.
Okay. Councilmember Draper, please.
Well, I'd just like to add that I really like option B, the second one as well. We can put down 500,000 of that RDA money and still have almost $1 million left. And the total savings with that would be $623,703. So it would shorten the term period for this loan to 16 and a half years. So I think that's really great. I don't feel inclined for option C. It would only shorten it by 3 years, but we'd have to chunk in a whole $1 million. The kind of the middle of the road amount seems pretty reasonable to me. But
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah. So when you say that there's 1.4 in the account, is that total, or is there projects that's just earmarked, but we actually have more money sitting in the account?
That's after expending all the earmarked projects.
Okay, have those earmarked projects been approved?
Yes.
They have, so they're already in the pipeline.
Yes.
So that must have happened in the
before.
Oh yeah, we've had this money for a long time.
All right, so a little history on this. I look back, and when this whole project was put together, cobbled together, it's not just solar, it's lighting, it's air conditioning, it's on all 9 facilities that the city owns. The original deal with the lender, which actually it's actually a lease or a rental program, and the original deal was an interest rate of 4.2% for a loan of about just shy of $3.5 million. The lender, a Sacramento-based company, is going to make about $2 million as it stands. Now, the interesting piece I found in this was that when you look into option A, or when you look into the dialogue here, it says that we're paying 5.1. And the original approved by the dais prior, except Mr. Jack Berry and Art Hatley voted against it. But the rest of the crew, minus Tom, you weren't here. So Councilman Thomas wasn't here. But anyway, just drilling down into the details of this, which is a very large project, very complicated, I think it's important to note that the solar project has never been installed. So we're paying out on money for things that we're not even realizing. So this whole project kind of concerns me just on its face value. Additionally, there was a maintenance agreement with a company called ABM that's out of our area, out in Sacramento. Kind of concerned why we don't have a local air conditioning company servicing our equipment. That's another question for another day. But the $106,000, given that I have a background in I used to actually run this type of a business, maintenance business, and that's a steep price tag for basically a filter change for 2 years. So just as I was drilling down and looking at all the details, there was a lot of details lacking when this decision was initially made to move this project forward. So the whole project, to me, there are some just questionable pieces to its feasibility, its viability. I know the air conditioning has been installed, but there are other parts, again, that have not. And then, interestingly enough, we can use RDA money to pay down so that we're not having regular outgo on our regular budget, which brings up a whole nother level of questions, again, for another time. But and then the last piece that I need to make, that's a very important point. Given I have a little bit of a background in this industry, about 15 years for commercial equipment is the life expectancy. So here we are. If we go with this 16.5-year deal, right, we're a year and a half past the serviceability of the equipment on 9 city-owned facilities. So if you were a homeowner, think about this. You're paying down on something, a piece of equipment that you no longer own. Now you're having to go out and buy another one. How many of us would involve ourselves in that kind of an endeavor? I don't think anybody would. It just doesn't make sense. So I think, in my opinion, the responsible thing here is to definitely go with option C, to try, that brings it down to 13.5 years. It brings it inside of the serviceability of the rooftop equipment on these 9 buildings. And then I have a huge question about moving forward with this contract with a solar array that is not even installed which again is a whole nother set of questions that in my opinion, puts the long-term project in jeopardy to some degree. I would even like to have a city attorney look into if there's a piece of this that we could set aside, possibly. I've said enough.
I'll make sure that we pass along that concern, and we'll get back to interim city administrator.
And excuse me, and I know that some of these units that were replaced were only 4 or 5 years old with a 15-year expectancy, and they're sitting in a yard over there slated to be demoed for the copper instead of recycled. There are a lot of buildings that would love to have had a nearly new unit to be able to purchase at a reasonable price, or even donate it to them instead of just being demoed. But the reality of it is we're on the hook now, and we need to get it over with. Councilmember Draper's in the queue.
Well, to answer one of your questions, the reason there was not a local business doing this is no local business put in an application to do this. And I know that because I called Don Rust and asked him about it a few months ago when this issue came up. And I really, at the time when we heard the presentation for the solar panels and all of that, I was under the impression that this was going to be implemented shortly. So if Councilor Smith says that those solar panels have not even been put on the buildings yet, I would like to know, what's going on with that and what is the holdup?
The issue that we ran into with the solar panels is the company that was putting it in didn't do their proper research on this. They made an assumption they could put them on the airport property. They never contacted the FAA. There was no glint and glare tests that were conducted. There was no coring, no sampling. They just made an assumption. Once they got into that, we have made contact with the FAA and asked for permission to put that on there, because we can't just put anything on the airport just because we want to. So that's really slowed that part down. What we've been talking about previously, and I probably wasn't real clear on that, was the solar panels at the corporation yard that we were talking about, overhead parking. These are those solar panels that we were talking about, moving the project down there, because you do not need FAA approval for property that you own and you can put it there. So we're working with moving this project from the airport to the corporation yard downtown.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodson?
I think the bottom line is we have to eat this, and it just depends. 13.5 years, 16.5, or 18.5. Option A, B, or C.
Looking for an option or a motion recommending option number 3.
I'd like to make a motion that we take option C as discussed.
I second.
I'll wear these glasses out.
Can I ask a quick question on the motion, Mr. Legrone? And the relocation of the solar panels, obviously I understand the problem with the airport. Is it potentially possible they could be installed on some of the city parking lots to add shaded parking lots?
That's exactly what we're doing down at the corporation yard, is creating a shaded parking lot for overflow parking for the Harrison Stadium. Okay. And the reason why we've picked that location is because of the transfer station of PG&E that's right there, and the undergrounding that we're already going to have to do for the new building that we're actually building with some of this RDA money. So it just it was less expensive for all involved.
I just wanted to throw the idea of having some of our downtown parking lots being shaded might be an attractive for shoppers to participate and go to downtown businesses.
Yeah, I know at one point an idea of rustic solar panels was thrown around over the parking lot down here just for curb appeal.
Thank you.
Is there going to be a fence? Just kidding. Councilmember Smith.
I just wanted to add that the other challenge is when you look at this whole project, you have a cost analysis. So you have solar, right? It goes in, and the solar is designed to offset your utility costs. So the numbers becomes skewed when the project's delayed, and so its viability or its ability to pay down the loan and the whole package then becomes in jeopardy. So I just want to again share why I was so very concerned as I drilled down into the details of this, and but I think this is a good move, assuming that things move along.
Thank you. So, can we finish voting?
You may have a question down here.
Oh, you got a question? Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. When you talk about moving this down to the corporation yard, now is this? I know that we're talking about going to put something down there for the FEMA trailers and stuff. I just want to make sure we're not using the same land twice, or I mean, is it two separate spots, or is it above, or how's that going to work?
Right now, we're looking at two options, Councilman Hatley. We're looking at doing overhead in the front of the parking lot near Mitchell, and we're also looking at a spot at the very back of the corporation yard that's kind of tucked away remotely, right next to the transfer station that is located on Veach, kind of down at the bottom of the hill. We're still working with the contractor to see and working with our corp yard people to figure out what works best for them.
So it's not going to interfere or be in conflict with the other project that we're looking at?
No, we've actually spoke with them and let them know that we have this other project coming in, and they'd have to work in and around the trailers that could potentially be there.
Okay, thank you.
Who did that?
Madam Clerk.
Motion carries.
I just want to say, as we voted that for Ruth, thank you so much for, we're in a pickle as far as the situation, but for you doing the homework on your own to look at options to save money for the city. So,
yeah, I put in there just that it was a cost savings, but we have also had problems with the bank, so it's a win-win to get away from the bank that we have.
So thank you for doing that, Ruth.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, North Valley Community Foundation and City of Oroville Partnership for Campfire Disaster Relief Housing. Bill?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight is consideration and additional direction for staff to how to move forward on this project. What we've been working on is moving with our corporation yard, moving potentially up to 59 MHUs, which are mobile housing units for victims of the Camp Fire. This is going to be done in partnership, if the council approves this, with the North Valley Community Foundation.
Can I clarify too, Bill, that this is actually the North Valley Community Foundation is looking to house employees here, and they're going to do it through their own system. It's not going to be first come, first served through FEMA.
Okay.
Correct. These are going to be working families that are looking for places to stay, and they're going to bear the cost of these individuals being down there. As we've worked through this project, we kind of touched on it from a 50,000-foot viewpoint with the council one night and really didn't give you a bunch of detail, just told you this is what we're doing. Well, we got a little further into the details of this now as we're working through this. What we're looking at doing is moving the 59 trailers onto the corporation yard. In your packet, you had a couple different drawings. One of them showed you a potential layout that North Star Engineering provided. As we were working through this, one of the considerations that we ran into is that we have a large mountain behind the corporation yard that we need to deal with. I have a few pictures just because I think it sometimes helps if you see what we're talking about as opposed to me trying to describe it. So these are just some real quick pictures that we'll go through. This is just some views from the corporation yard of the area we're talking about. The area we're specifically talking about is on the other side of the fence. This is just different angles. You see we have a large mountain of that's actually ground up road that's back there that we've stored back there. The rest is just dirt and different bulk materials we brought in. This is the other side of it, closer to the PG&E yard, closer to the Veach side. I can't see what that is, but that's stuff.
The FEMA trailers.
That is the exchange trailer.
Yes, that's the exchange trailer. It's kind of just a further back view of the whole area that we're talking about. This is just another view of the large mountain that's back there. It's mostly cobble and dirt and things, and this is what has been there, the cobble. The dirt is stuff that we brought in over many, many years and just piled up there. So we've created kind of a mountain. We have to do something with that. This is unusable space that the city currently has. We own almost all the way back to the Food Max parking lot. This is just another angle looking at what we have going on back there. You can see Feather River Tribal Health in the background. We own up to the back of their property between this fence you see and all the way over. That is part of your corporation yard that currently is unusable. It's just a big mound of dirt. We need to make that usable at some point somehow and utilize that property. So as we were working through this project, part of the cost and expense that would have been borne on this would have been to bring in large tractors and to terrace this property. The idea that North Valley had was they wanted to terrace it. Well, terracing really don't work for us because we want something usable when they're done. We want a flat yard because eventually, after 24 months, this is going to come back to the city for our use. So we need this thing flat, not terraced. So we got to thinking about this, and I know that you know, one day when, and I'm not blaming Don for this, but you know, Don Rust and I were talking, and somehow or another, Don let me know that we had property out on 5th Avenue that was owned by the city. And I've known that, but Don also let me know that Duke Sherwood was interested in that property. And I didn't think much of it at the time. I just, you know, it's one of those things you file away that you know, and I kind of moved forward. Well, you know, what I've learned about that property out on 5th Avenue is that it was the, and you have to correct me if I'm incorrect on this, Art, but it was the original sewer ponds for the city of Oroville prior to joining the JPA with SCORE. And so our original sewer ponds were there once we joined, and they updated or built our modern factory, I believe in the late 50s and early 60s, or not factory, but plant. Sewer plant, right. We abandoned those ponds. Those ponds were later used by, I believe it was DeSallo or DeWallow olives that were sending their brine over there to settle and to get rid of that brine in an appropriate manner. Well, that was done for many years out there. Because of the two uses of the property, it became contaminated. It became an EPA issue. We have been responsible for that property for many, many years. We were able to break off 6 acres in the back of that property and sell that to Mr. Sherwood. I don't know what year, but I know that we did. I believe it was somewhere in the, you have to forgive me. I don't know. I don't see the date on this.
2008, probably.
Okay, somewhere in that area, we sold that property to Mr. Sherwood. The rest has remained empty. We have large ponds out there, and these are just another pile of dirt we have down the corporation yard. Another angle. This is what it looks like out on 5th Avenue. This is looking through where one of the ponds were actually at, and the side of it just is, for whatever reason, has been dug out, eroded. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's actually retaining water back in there, and you see there's all sorts of debris and things floating around in there. This is another view. There's large tanks. There's what that metal is you're seeing out there is there used to be a building out there, and it was smashed because it was becoming an attractive nuisance for various individuals. So it was with the consent of the city, it was demolished, and it's been laying there ever since. I believe the blue things, as best I can tell, are large pumps that aerated the ponds that were brought in that were actually never used. They were just brought in, and then the other pond went online. This is a large culvert that's been dumped out there. That's our fence. This is what it looks like from the road. I know this is really hard to see. I'm not a very good photographer, but this isn't road frontage property. You have property between the road and the fence. The fence is kind of way back in here quite a ways. It's and I know can't point at the thing, but if you can kind of imagine back there about where you see the tree line, there's a fence back there, and that's where this property actually begins. So this isn't frontage property. This is another view of things that were deposited out there. I believe these were out there as part of the cleanup for the property, and they were left there after it was done. This is other things that were there. There's garbage all over it. It's probably a city cone that's running loose. We have some, I'm not sure what this metal thing is that's over here. But anyway, those are just kind of some pictures of the property. As you can see from what we provided you, the pictures are do show that it's back off of the road and everywhere. Some of the things that we need to address with the property that currently exist out there is we have large piles of cobble that needs to be pushed into these, or these ponds need to be flattened. Debris need to be cleaned up. This is a not a very usable piece of property. We also have a right-of-way easement that needs to be recorded that the city never did when we sold the property to Mr. Sherwood, because he has to have an easement across our property that we currently own to get to the property that we sold him in the back. Otherwise, he's landlocked. He can't get to it. There's also a secondary easement that needs to be recorded because property to the north of this is owned by another individual, and they are landlocked by us. So we have to record those two easements. So either way, we're going to have to deal with that. We need to clean the debris off of the property. It goes unattended. It's really, quite honestly, it's useless property to the city. It's always good to own land, but this land is in a very difficult location. It's located directly behind our SPCA, our dog pound, essentially, and it's across the street diagonally from our sewer treatment plant. So it's not an ideal location to begin with. The property has received environmental clearance. It was received, we were notified of this on the 8th of April in 2015. I have that document here today, had that research to ensure that. The issues, or what Mr. Sherwood has said that he would like to do with the property is potentially turn this into a batch plant. Something similar to Matthews Ready Mix, where they prepare cement or asphalt or whatever it is that they're making there. So if that were to happen, there would be the potential of new jobs that will be created out there because of this facility. And Mr. Sherwood has not only the need for the material, but also has the ability to do this. We have received a price from Mr. Sherwood for what the construction would be, or the excavation work necessary at the corporation yard, just for the terracing that North Star has provided in their original engineers drawings for the corporation yard. That's where we're going to have multi-level trailers there. They provided us a price of $83,758 to do that terracing work. So I asked the question when I was talking with the Sherwoods, what would it cost to go completely flat? They estimated that that would be approximately another $30,000. And when they do jobs like this, they like to have about a 5 to 10% contingency, because they don't know what they're going to run into once they get into the ground. I mean, if it runs into something that requires some sort of blasting or something like that, there may be additional expenses. So they were estimating that this would run somewhere around $110,000. Cleanup work, flattening the ponds, filling the ponds, moving the rocks out there, getting rid of the debris on Fifth Avenue would run about $30,000 as well to get that work done. So we're looking at, if we were to clean our ponds up out there, get rid of all of our trash, and get our property flattened over here, we're looking at about a $140,000 expense. What Mr. Sherwood is interested in doing with us, and it's up to the council, if the council's interested in this, he would be willing to do the work at the corporation yard, flatten it, spread the aggregate out as necessary, and allow us to, in exchange for the property out on Fifth Avenue, with no requirement that we do any cleaning to it, any landfill, any ponds, any sort of remediation or anything out there. He would just like to have the land in exchange for the excavation work at the corporation yard. A flat corporation yard is what we would end up with. This, right now, currently, from staff's perspective, it seems like it would be a win-win situation, not only for the city, but staff and, the city, the council, and the Sherwoods. They end up with the property. It becomes usable. It goes back onto the tax roll. It generates something for our community. As right now, it's off of the tax roll. It doesn't really do anything than take. And we're not doing a very good job. We're not being a good steward of that property. We have looked into other things with the corporation yard as far as the sewer, because I know that was one of the questions. What is the issue with that sewer line that runs down there? So I talked with the supervisor of the sewer department. They've looked at that line. The line is, their biggest concern with it is that it's only 2.5 feet in the ground, which means that from the back of the property of our corp yard to that, there may not be enough drop. If that's the case, then North Valley is going to have to put in some sort of tank and pumping situation. That won't be your issue. That will be their issue for that to work. He's looked at it, and for the conveyance of the materials or the deposited materials from that location to deliver to SCORE for treatment. And he has told me that he does not see an issue with that. And if we do this, it should be able to handle up to 50 trailers. And he will make sure that they do the cleanings on it that are necessary in order to do that. There are issues with the line because it does need some slip lining, which is allowing additional infiltration and intrusion of waters into the line. but there's no blockage or obstruction that he's aware of that exists at this time. He doesn't believe there's a problem with the conveyance. So long and short of it, what we're talking about doing is exchanging a very large excavation project at our corporation yard to flatten it for us, and in exchange for 19 acres out on 5th Avenue that really is not usable to us anymore. The other upside to this too is that once we get our yard back, or for the next 24 months, while these trailers are there, the city will generate revenue from the rental of the trailer spaces, essentially. So that will be good for us too. The necessary infrastructure is there. It's, I believe it'll be flattened. Our solar project will either go in above the front of it, where we can create overflow parking for Harrison Stadium when this is done, or it will go in the back of it and be completely out of the way of everything. It also allows you as a council to provide for yourself future growth opportunities at your corporation yard. Right now, it's useless property back there. It's just a place to catch stuff. Mr. Sherwood has also agreed to allow us to deposit any aggregate materials that we have or debris that are necessary, not piles of garbage, but limbs and things like that, if necessary, for the next 24 months on this property until we get our yard back. So they are going to take a large portion of it, but we do have this as a backup place that we can take and put aggregate materials. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you or receive your direction.
Well, you got almost a full queue here. Councilmember Pittman, please.
Two big questions. I'm looking at the schematic site layout behind the yard on Mitchell Avenue. Their access road is kind of, I think it's picking in. What street would they access? Are they going to access Veach or Mitchell?
It'll be accessed off of Mitchell.
Off of Mitchell.
It's
okay.
now, if you're familiar with the area down there where we park the B-line buses, it'll be coming through that area.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think that's a great project, and it looks good to me. I think what you're proposing is a great idea. A little short history on the property down on 5th Avenue. That was North Burbank Sewer Treatment Facility. The city, in its infinite wisdom, bought that from them because they had a contamination issue. And why we bought that, I'll still shaking my head over that long term. And we had nothing but problems with it in terms of had to line the ponds, had to do all kinds of remediation work. This is a good idea to unload that property because we have no potential use for it all. Turning it back to public or private use is a great idea, and I actually applaud you guys for doing this swap deal because it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodson.
Chief, approximately what would be the revenue generated for the next 2 years?
I honestly don't know that. We have not gotten to that point that we've discussed with North Valley what that rent would be.
What are we anticipating?
Tom, do you have an idea
as
on
a
that?
city?
I think probably in the range of $300 to $500 a month per trailer. I think that's probably what we would anticipate.
So that would be.
I have to get my pen.
I didn't do the calculation. We haven't finished final negotiation. You're saying 5, Gary?
600,000.
500 per trailer. Again, from my perspective, the reason that we wanted to do this, forgetting for a minute the grading, is that it's a real community benefit to get these employees housed. Our economy depends on employee housing, and as you all know, we're in trouble there. Yeah. And then it also helped with the employees for our senior housing project.
I had 2 other questions. In the event that the tenants, some, are still seeking housing within that 2-year period, what is that extension period going to look like?
That would be up to.
Yeah, I don't believe we're going to have tenants. Our tenant will be the North Valley Foundation, and we'll have a deadline there. And what I would envision if we got to that point and there was 59 trailers in there and there was 59 families, we would get to that point. They would reduce down, and if they got down to 20 or whatever, we'd have to come back to council and say, okay, these 20 families, we're going to move them to the front because we're going to start reclaiming our yard. Mm-hmm. We would work with them and with North Valley, and I'm sure that they have a plan in 24 months what they're going to do.
I'm sure they do.
And I would echo that. I would say that the agreement's with North Valley Community Foundation, and that it could be completely in the council's arena as to whether any agreement got extended.
My next question is, last council meeting, we had identified and addressed several of our alleyways. There's a lot of alleyways. Could we consider using a portion of that aggregate to fill up some of those horrific chuck holes?
Yeah, I believe this aggregate, the reason why we kept it is exactly for that. It could be, used for road base. It can be used for a lot of different things. And, we just have to, yes, we can fill those holes there. We just have to be careful to make sure that we mind our drainage and we don't cause folks bigger problems.
Personally, I would call them potholes.
I know he's going to get me.
Okay, Vice Mayor Thompson, please.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. We have it's a couple different items as you proposed here. One's the North State and their bid for the putting the trailers in our property, and the other one is the other property. So it's kind of like a couple different items that we're putting together as one. I think one of my concerns is sometimes we have things that go through the city. I don't want to call them backdoor deals, but agreements that are made with people like, remind me his name again?
Duke Sherwood Excavation.
Yeah, Mr. Sherwood. So one of the concerns for me is, although I'm in favor of dumping a property in exchange for some work on a property that we need to have work done on, I think my concern is having it opened up. I would like to see it actually opened up, made known to the public for other citizens who are say, hey, see what they might throw in there as well. Because again, the idea of just kind of making an agreement with Mr. Sherwood, then moving forward with it without other, potential businesses in town that could have other options for us, so they could come to the table and say, hey, I would like to have the property. I'll do this for you in exchange and whatnot. So that's something that I would like to see done, as opposed to just moving it forward without having other excavating companies in town talk about it or come to the table with us.
One of the issues that we run into with that is there's not another excavation company in town that can handle this volume or size of work. This is not this is going to require several very large earth movers, and this is a huge project. And just one thing that I like to cover about Mr. Sherwood, we sold Mr. Sherwood that property in the back, and we did such a poor job at this city that we never recorded a note. We didn't do anything. We just said we'd carry the paper. If it wasn't for his honesty in coming in and paying that, we wouldn't have known that he never paid for the property. I mean, so he's a very honest and upright man that isn't going to work any, he's a good quality person that.
I don't question that.
Right, no, I know. I just want to make sure everybody knows.
And just my other concern, just to move on with my thoughts, is for the aggregate, do we have another spot for that?
We're going to move the aggregate actually off of the corporation yard that we don't use to cap down there to this location for the next 24 months on 5th Avenue. Mr. Sherwood has allowed us to use that property if we transfer it to him to store our aggregate.
And I believe that because I was approached about this property by Mr. Sherwood. He actually wanted to buy it, but he said, you guys have promised to clean this up. Don Rusk had promised to clean it up for years, and he said, we need this cleaned up. It's a hazard. And I went and walked the property. It is a big hazard out there. It's a big deal. And when this other thing came up to use the corporation yard, so he wasn't the one who came up with the idea. There was no, and we're in an open council meeting. There's no backdoor deals or anything else going on. Everything's very open. And what do you think the estimate for cleaning up that property, our responsibility would be, Bill?
The information that the Sherwoods provided me is to be about $30,000 to have them come in and fill or level the ponds and to clear the debris that are left on there and grub out the property.
That's on the 5th Avenue property?
That's on the 5th Avenue
all
property.
The debris. And then the cost of the excavation for the corporate yard is around $140,000, so we're nearing $200,000 with the contingency.
Yeah, I think we're somewhere in the $150,000
and
range.
Right now we've got an unusable, worthless piece of property that is actually contiguous to a small piece of property of his. and he could put a yard in here, batch plant, and create some jobs. That's what I'm looking at. Councilmember Draper, please.
I was just going to add that I think it's a win-win. Taking it from just a useless piece of property, and it's going to benefit the city, and it's going to benefit Mr. Sherwood. And I doubt anybody else in town would be interested in buying that property. He is, because this is right in front of the property that he currently owns, so it makes sense. But thank you very much for such thorough work and research on this, and I think it's a great idea.
And if I could clarify for the Vice Mayor, because those are certainly reasonable points. First of all, I would agree that the only person who really be interested in this property is Mr. Sherwood, but he is one of the few folks actually in the North State that has this type of equipment that moves it. He's well known in the area.
Generations. Yes, absolutely. Impeccable reputation. Council Member Hatley.
Thank you. At one time on the Fifth Avenue properties, there were quite a bit of EDUs attached to that property. Are they still attached to that, or what's going to happen to those EDUs?
I believe there's 13 EDUs associated with that property, and Gary and I have talked about that, and we're going to see if we can work with SCORE and get those EDUs transferred somehow to the corporation yard for our project down there.
Okay. I was just curious if it was planning on going with if it went with the property, and I'm not sure. You'd have to check with them anyway to find out if those are transferable like that, or if they go back into the pool and then you have to do it through a process. But anyway, now there's 19 acres on South Fifth Avenue, right? Is that what you said, 19?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, do we know an appraisal on that? Do we have an appraisal on that property, or would it require an appraisal if we're going to trade property for services?
I don't believe we're going to, and maybe, as I looked into this, I did do some assessment of what is the value of the property. It's difficult to say because you look at most of the properties that are out there and they have road frontage, and you can list your property for anything you like. I mean, that property is not fast moving out there. I've seen anything out in that area from $100,000 up to $500,000, but I haven't seen anything that is necessarily, that we can concrete foundation put that. Now, maybe our attorney can enlighten us if we have to have an appraisal.
I think, at the end of the day, any property transfer is going to require an appraisal to set the valuation of it anyway. But, the long and the short of it is the property is worth what a person will pay for it, right? And so if you have no suitors, and you have a property that has a large amount of money that needs to be put into it to make it serviceable or clean it, then that is also going to be a barrier to even having a possibility of transacting the property or identifying a comparable property to measure against. So, it's effectively just open, unused land that needs remediation in order to be usable in any state. It would be difficult to say that you would need a definitive appraisal beyond what everybody is agreeing the value of it is at this stage.
And one thing I can share
I'm not
with you.
arguing about it. I'm just trying to figure out where
legally
we're going
have
to
to
stay inside the legal thing here, and I don't want to start into this process and then 6 months in or a month into it, they go, oh, by the way, you needed an appraisal, and now we're hung up on something. That's why I'm just trying to figure out. And I've never seen us sell anything or do anything without an appraisal. I just never have.
One thing we can do probably to help with on a commercial appraisal is different than a residential appraisal. A commercial appraisal that we currently have going on right now costs us about $2,500 for an appraisal of some bare land. I really don't want to expend $2,500 of the city's money to do an appraisal on this. What I would like to do, if this is acceptable, is get a market assessment from the realtor that we've retained to handle our real estate issues or transactions, if that will work, because that's how we've kind of set values on things to this point.
All I want to do is protect the city. That's
right.
That's the only thing I care about, is that we don't we don't trade this property for $100,000 worth of work, just using a number, and the property is worth $2 million.
Right.
And then some citizen is going to stand up and go, oh, hold it, what did you guys just do? And so I just want to make sure that we're within this safe realm to where somebody can't come back and attack us on something that we're doing that maybe we should have thought through a little more. The other thing is too, how is this different at the corporation yard as to what is going on in Gridley right now? Because I just talked to, I was lost, so I was in Gridley yesterday, and I talked to the chief over there because I was trying to find directions. But anyway, and to get lost in Gridley, please. But anyway, we were talking about that piece of property that I guess they're going to put FEMA and stuff on, and how all the infrastructure they're putting in, and he said that the city was going to recoup quite a bit of money from that type of thing. How is this different from that project, or is it similar? Or?
This is not a FEMA project. This was going to be done through the North Valley Community Foundation. So it
has nothing to do with the FEMA.
It's not FEMA, but we are going to recruit monies from this. The difference between why Gridley is going to make so much more money than the city of Oroville is they also, they sell their water, they sell their electricity, and they're the provider of all of that with those folks being in there.
Right.
And they also it's in their industrial park where they're getting the land rent. All we're going to get is the land rent, which is actually, if I heard correctly, it's about $25,000 a month. Is what we could be, or 27,000 is what we could be looking at for 24 months. So we'll do pretty well on this too, and we come out of it with a flattened yard. I will get an opinion from Scott in writing about the appraisal to make sure, and if we do need an appraisal, we will get an appraisal prior to make sure to cover ourselves on that.
And again, just to be clear, I'm not against this project, but I just want to make sure that the question is asked, and we have our attorneys, or we have a legal opinion that says that somebody can't come in 6 months down the road and say you gave away a whole lot of money in the property. That's all I'm trying to do here is protect the city.
I think rather than appraisal, we can get an opinion of value that based on these conditions, I'm 99% sure we'll justify it. But I understand what you're saying.
Believe so. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, my memory serves me well too. I'm going to say that this property was purchased with RDA funds. So you might research the issue because it was acquired as a RDA project to mitigate and utilize those ponds after the Delalo had helped that particular company. So you might go through and make sure that we're not going to have any stumbling blocks in that process. And I totally agree that this is a good deal. This is a land swap that is favorable to both parties in place. I got no problem with appraisals and values, but it's really hard to appraise commercial vacant land that's set there for about 100 years.
Well, and not just vacant, but unusable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you really got to go and walk it to appreciate the job that it would be to make.
You
this
also have to recognize this is old dredger tailing property. So there's all kinds of issues. It's a risk that everybody takes to own it. They may dig down and find, an old oil pit. The same thing happened over at the football stadium. They dug into a lot of things that were leftover dredger operations. So there's a reasonable risk here on both parties, and both the city and the private developer that's wanting to make this land swap. So I just like the whole thing. I think it makes a good deal across, and it's certainly, as Mr. Hatley brings up, we should have some kind of appraisals to know what we're talking about. And but really, this property, I've seen it for 20 years sit there, do nothing, and needs to be unloaded and get out of it. So thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
I just appreciate Mr. Councilman Hatley's observations. I think they're very astute and important to add to this narrative. And so, Chief, you're just essentially looking for direction today.
We want to make sure that this is, before we get way out there running ahead, that that you're aware of what we're doing, and that we are going to bring back. We'll probably, if the council says move ahead on this, we will be in contact with Mr. Sherwood tomorrow to tell him to go ahead and begin the process, and we will bring back contracts and documents for the council to approve and sign. So that you have all of the detail, and we'll get that opinion prior to transfer of any property or anything like that, because Mr. Sherwood was interested in bringing in a some sort of a bulldozer. He told me exactly what it was, but I can't remember, to cut a road in because we have some cleanup of debris on our property, our corporation yard, that our folks are going to have to get to prior to them coming in to do all of their work. So I
just one other comment. So time is probably of the essence, because I would assume that North Valley is chomping at the bit, if you will, to get in there. So, I mean, are we any kind of jeopardy with our contract with them?
No, we're not jeopardizing that. We'll bring it back to the next council meeting so that you know fully nail this thing down. I just didn't want to get way out there, get all this talking done, then find out that I have 7 council members that want nothing to do with this.
Yeah, no, I think it's a brilliant move. I think you're thinking outside the box, and I applaud that. That's great. Yeah, we need that.
Looking for a motion to direct staff to proceed with the project as outlined.
So I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to proceed with the project as outlined.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 10.
This item is before you based on the conversation that we had at our last meeting, and this would clarify that the FEMA trailers are not to be brought into subdivisions that have already have improvements, and that's what this does.
Okay. No comments in the on the dais. I think it's pretty straightforward. Looking for a motion.
I move that we adopt an urgency ordinance number 1836.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 11, consideration of request to initiate annexation process for 4250 Lincoln Boulevard, the Oroville Rescue Mission.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What this is before you for your consideration tonight is to give direction to staff whether to proceed forward with the annexation of the property located at 4250 Lincoln Boulevard. If we're going to do this, we are not going to be able to annex just that particular property because we'd be creating an island, which LAFCO does not approve. So in order to move this annexation forward, staff is looking for direction of whether to initiate annexation between Idora Street to the southmost border of 4250 Mission of Lincoln of the Oroville Rescue Mission. This was being brought to you at the request of the Oroville Rescue Mission. Pastor Steve Terry wrote me a letter in early January requesting this annexation. What we'd be looking at is if the council does give this direction is we would be contracting out with a consulting planning firm to get this done. It would cost you approximately $15,000 to $18,000. We'll bring you back an exact cost on what that is with this consultant to process this, which would be all of the LAFCO paperwork, any CEQA work that needed to be done, all of the necessary annexation processes, so this would be a complete deal. So what we're looking for essentially tonight is simply direction if you want to move forward on this, if you'd like more information, or how you would like to proceed, or if you do not want to move forward.
And Mayor, I should indicate we do have 4 speakers in this item.
5.
How many?
We
Okay.
just got another one. 5.
5, excuse me.
5. Okay. Well, I think we'll hear from the speakers first. Yeah, we'd like to hear from our speakers first, please.
Pastor Steve Terry, and then Bobby O'Reilly, and then Bill Spear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. We've made this request, and I will tell you, I've already taken this to my board of directors. They have approved that we proceed. And purpose for this, number one, we've kind of been on the outside of the city limits, yet we serve the city of Oroville. And we've often, almost on a yearly basis, we receive invitations to come down and apply for CBDG monies. What you said. We get invitations to come down, and then as soon as we get here, I step up and bam, you're not eligible, you're not in the city. We are moving in a new direction. We are also trying to purchase 4248 Lincoln, and we have slated that. We want to have a wet shelter in there, and we think it would be beneficial that would be a part of the city of Oroville. My administrative office is here. My thrift store is in the city limits. I would like to have it all be that way. And our board and I have considered, I think, any disadvantages, and the only one I can find would be my garbage bill would be double. Other than that, I can't find any disadvantages at all. So that's kind of our request, that we would like to go forward. So thank you very much for your time.
Bobby O'Reilly, Bill Spear, and then Kevin Thompson.
Good evening again, Council, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm just going to slightly echo Pastor Terry in the sense of I think it would be very beneficial, seeing as how they serve a great multitude of the city limits, to have them in the city limits, not only to benefit the city limits for our sake, but also for theirs, so that they can be eligible for things that the city offer to businesses and such that are a part of the city, such as funding options, grants, so forth and so on. As far as the annexation process goes, I believe it was Chief Legrone stated a minute ago that you're not allowed to annex just that property because it would create an island, which totally threw me off. I wasn't going to speak on that, but essentially I'm pretty sure we have islands now, if I'm not mistaken. We have some stretched out pieces, but anyhow, before you annex from Idora down, I'd love to see the idea take place, but before you did, it would be great to make sure you talk to all the constituents in that area.
Bill Spear, Kevin Thompson, and then the last speaker is John
Mitchell. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I totally agree with Pastor Terry. The Oroville Rescue Mission should be in Oroville. And not only that, you know, looking forward for our city, you know, it was a terrible thing for Southside to be cut out of the Oroville city limits for as long as it would. I'm glad that they finally moved forward to including it. But if you look at our city limits, it looks like somebody was on meth or something when they drew it up, because it doesn't make any sense at all. You go to Sacramento, and I don't agree with much Sacramento does, but before you even get anywhere near the city, it says you're in city limits. They drew a big circle around it, made it easy, included everybody. So if you're going to be putting money into getting somebody to put an analysis, you should think in the bigger picture, because there's going to be this group here and this group here. We need to be more inclusive for the city of Oroville. Draw a circle around it and include everybody. There's so much division, and you know, I live on 5th Street, and I'm in the county. Across the street is in the city. I got friends that live on 18th Street, and they're in the city. And you know, we should fix that. It's an easy fix. You know, whatever the reason is that it got drawn all that way, utilize this time the consultants that you have and think a little bigger. And how can we think bigger long term, so we're not coming to this every so often when we're like, hey, why is Steve Terry out? Why is Southside out? Why is these people excluded? And let's get the community, utilize our money wisely, do one study instead of 20, one consultant instead of 20 different times, and plan for prospering, plan for achieving it and getting it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Thompson, and then John Mitchell.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and Council, good evening. Thank you for this forum and space. I'll simply rise just to say, first of all, I don't think Mr. Terry or Annie need me to get up and say anything. They have been doing a great work in our community for many years, and I think you all shouldn't even spend a lot of time with this. We ought to go ahead and annex that portion into our city. And I think we had roughly, after we paid $1 million for the solar, I think we have $400,000 left over of RDA money. Right? And it's a beautiful building right next door to them that they can use. Why not give them the $400,000 and let them continue to do the work in the community? Just simply, and we just hope and pray that you do the right thing.
Thank you.
And our last speaker is John Mitchell.
Likewise, I don't really think Pastor Steve and Annie need me to come up here and say something, but as a board member of the Oroville Rescue Mission, I just want to thank you for putting this matter before the council this evening, and thank you for taking it into consideration. We really are looking for more and more ways that we can come alongside the city of Oroville and serve those in our community who need the help the most. And I think that one of the things that this project really does is it does, keep us from having to move operations closer and closer to city center in order to service these people in our community. So thank you so much for looking into this, and we hope that we can make this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just if I could clear up a couple things, Mr. Mayor, quickly. This, when you say an island, we're not talking about the property. Whenever you create something on three sides of something where a majority of it is surrounded by a city, the property that isn't annexed is the island. And Mr. O'Reilly's correct, there are islands, and we've been annexing those over many years in small bites like this. So we can't create this island by leaving that property not annexed. The monies that we're talking about expending will come from our outside services account. There's approximately $48,000 in that account right now that's not dedicated to any particular project. If we do that, then the money will go for this. It's not just conducting a study. It's actually facilitating the annexation process so that the consultant will carry it all the way through. We just don't have the planning personnel now to do that. The last thing, Pastor Thompson's suggestion about purchasing the building for the Terrys, or not even the Terrys, for the Oroville Rescue Mission. We cannot do that with bond RDA residual money. It's not in the original RDA. You cannot spend that money there. So, and Pastor Terry is correct. This does open up a whole area of financing that's not currently available to them. I mean, with CDBG dollars. Also, on the drawing that I submitted to the council, there was a purple lined map on the back. That purple line is actually city-owned property now, and Dave and Art will have to make sure I'm correct on this, but I believe that's where the old rail line used to go through. That's about 110 feet wide on the back of this property. One of the things that we have discussed in the past is not only having a wet shelter with a low barrier shelter for people that are struggling with those issues to go, but also some place for people to camp that want to camp outside, and also places for people that want to camp in cars. If we were to complete this annexation, I think it would also be probably in our best interest to transfer that property, or at least a strip of that, to the Oroville Rescue Mission to allow them to facilitate those types of needs for individuals that are looking for that that type of service. I mean, they are the ones that would be experts in this area, how to deal with that issue and how to best bring those people boy, that really sounded rough, didn't it? To bring people back to what I'm going to consider a social norm. Mm-hmm. So, we should, and that's just long-term thinking, and that's kind of, part of, as Pastor Terry and I have talked, this is part of what I believe we could say their dream would be, is to have that access to that property to do that. I know it's a wild thing to look at, that people want to live outside. Some people do. I mean, and the best place to facilitate that is somewhere where people can care for their needs.
Thank you, Chief. We have some council members in the queue. Council Member Pittman, please.
Yeah, the map is helpful. It would be good, too, if it had actually shown the city limits, because I believe, well, obviously the city's property is in the city limits on your purple line, but we also have the old bulk oil plant is in the city, correct?
I'm trying to remember.
That
what
would be
bulk
the
oil
1801. It was Standard Oil. Bulk or
I do not believe it is. I believe the city line actually stops on Idora. right there, but that was the one that.
Well, the bulk plant might have been in the city, because I'm just saying that it's a very jagged line there.
Right.
And obviously, the annexation would make sense to come over to Lincoln along Idora and then just carry it right on down to where Lincoln meets.
If acceptable, we'd like to bring it all the way over to Myers and bring it down Myers. And
I mean, those are the things that when
we
you
do
talk
not
about.
We do not want to go down to Marysville Baggett. We want to stop exactly where we're at, because there's other significant issues in that area that we do not want to take on.
Understand. I think it's a great idea. I think it's what you're mentioning too on the city-owned. It's the old Western Pacific Railroad right-of-way. We do own that, and it goes all the way out to Palermo, and it starts at the cannery. And there is a line on that is the discharge line for the treatment facility for the cannery. It's critical for them. So anything we go down the line with, that we need to make sure to preserve that right away for them. I think it's a great idea for the Rescue Mission to expand facilities. There's obviously a need for more capacity. So thank you for bringing a proposal, and I'm in support.
If you guys were willing to purchase me a motorcycle, I'd be willing to patrol that every day, a few times. I mean, if it's just another idea, if you're willing to do that.
Ranch already patrols it very well.
Yes.
Councilmember Draper, please.
Well, I really like this idea, and it's bothered me for a couple of years that the Rescue Mission has not been eligible to apply for a lot of funds. It should have, but because it wasn't in the city limits, they weren't able to do that. And obviously, they help with a great deal, you know, with our homeless population. And next month in March, well, actually, it's this month now, but toward the end of this month, they're going to be doing a new point-in-time study for Butte County. And I know that our homeless numbers have increased, not just because of the campfire, but because of tragedies that happen to individuals that aren't a collective tragedy. And so I am really glad that we have this opportunity to try to make this right. And I'm all for it.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodson.
I have a couple of questions, and let me preface. I'm excited about this. You know, it's been a long time coming. But I called LAFCO yesterday, and I spoke with Joy, and it was stated that there only needed to be one point of connectivity to the city. And so that point would be the rail bed on the west side. So my first question is, why is there a need to annex the surrounding area?
I'm sorry, I can address that first one. I'm sorry to know you're done. That is the law. The law says that you simply have to be contiguous to the area. However, LAFCO policy is that they will clean up any island or area that's outside between the property and the city limits. So their policy is that they would request us to add that territory. The law does not require that.
Okay, so could you explain what that area that it was a pie shape, right?
It's actually going to be, if we do not annex the properties in between Idora and the Oroville Rescue Mission, and we just hypothetically do the Oroville Rescue Mission, you've created now what's called an island. If you wanted to do other annexations down the road, you're not going to be allowed to do those annexations until you clean up this island. So it's just cleaner right now to do it as one step.
I also need to clarify, if it really creates an island, that does violate the Cortese Knox Nisbet, I think it's called now.
That's what I was thinking.
Thank you. So it would create an island, and what I'm looking at is, so we're talking about this side of Lincoln, not the other side where there's Stumpfield and Ithaca.
I would say we would go up to that would make it the east side of Myers. And then from the east side of Myers all the way back to the city-owned property between Idora and the location of the Oroville Rescue Mission.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is, what do you anticipate because whenever we annex, we always look at the anticipated revenue. What do you foresee?
It would be very small. The cost of the annexation on expenditures of services will probably be greater in the area than the revenue that'll be generated. There's not that much property value here, to be honest, and the most money that we would get out of the area would probably come from the utility user tax. And you can see there's not many homes in this area. The benefit that the uptick to it is that we now have the rescue mission in the city, and I think that, I don't think that's quantified in cash what that means to us. Well, I mean, just for an example, when we annex South Oroville, yes, that annexation, I believe it brings in approximately $279,000 a year.
276,000.
Yeah, and we expend probably, according to all of our information that we have, about $1 million for that annexation. So it's not really. Residential annexations are tough. I mean, they're really not profitable. That's why you always should have a commercial component to your annexations. If you do a residential, you should do a commercial to help cover those costs. I mean, so it's, this is one of those areas that it's probably right now for our community and for how we're forming our city, it's the right thing to do. It's not, to me, it's not a dollar and cents question. Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that these are the kinds of public and private relationships, I think, moving forward, being creative. And I certainly appreciate greatly Pastor Terry and stepping up, because this is going to, in the long run, also provide a great service to the city and to the community at large. Because, as you know, we are, just grappling with this emerging homeless challenge that all of us face. And so by the mission moving in this direction, that they're going to become a very, very important piece to helping law enforcement, helping the community, and helping those that find themselves in this plight, to where they have a source to connect with and to begin the healing process. So I mean, I just see this meeting so many needs on so many levels. I just can't wait to see this thing get started.
Looking for a motion.
I move that we provide staff direction to proceed with the annexation.
I'll second that.
Ooh.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 12, fee waiver request for fees associated with the Base Camp Village construction project.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is a request from the Base Camp Village project for a fee waiver request. The fee waiver would be in an amount of $89,979.96. Staff is recommending that you deny this fee waiver request at this time. There's multiple reasons for that. The main one being is that if this council takes the action to afford this developer this fee waiver, the issue that the developer is going to run into is that this will now become what is considered a public works project and subject him to prevailing wage, which is going to increase the cost of his project probably beyond what he can afford. I believe that he may have different feelings about this, but I don't believe that it's in his best service or their best service to approve this fee waiver at this time.
Are there any speakers on this?
I have two public speakers. I have Sherry Bunker and then Bobby O'Reilly.
I agree with Bill.
Okay. Time's up.
Well, I prepared for a 3-minute because I forgot we moved to 2 minutes. All right, good evening again. Regarding this fee waiver, I believe it's a bad idea, and here's some reasons why. Mr. Reed has lied to this community countless times regarding the funding, how property was obtained, etc. He stated he was self-funding this whole project out of the kindness of his heart. Then he stated publicly that he received the funding through donations from family and friends. He then states he borrowed $800,000 in which he is expecting to recoup from state grants. I do not care which one he uses. However, I do not appreciate the lies that have come to surface since this project was proposed on the 10th Street in Thermalito. He also stated that the new Paula Court property was donated to him for the cause. That is also a lie. The property was a trade as part of a negotiation to not put this project on 10th Street. He traded the 10th Street property for this property on Paula Court. Our city does not need to be in the business of giving everything away for free. This project is similar to the Haven of Hope on wheels, when they asked for the simple use of the city seal and specifically said they were not going to ask for money, just to turn around to ask for a little over $1 million in total for a project that wasn't honest about. If Mr. Reed is going to do this project, I believe he owes it to our community to pay the fees associated with this build to show good faith. The city has waived fees far too many times for large projects, but charged the little man for everything they do. Please deny this request to waive the fees for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the last public speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Pittman's in the queue.
Yeah, I understand what Mr. Legault said, and it certainly makes sense because it moves if we do grant this fee waiver, it moves the project up from $109 square foot to $189 square foot. I mean, just because you're going to have to apply roughly prevailing wage. The other problem I have, and I just want to bring to council's attention, is it's been the policy in the past for non-government organizations to consider a 50% fee waiver. I'm only bringing that up because just to be consistent with all our other nonprofits in our community, if we do offer some kind of consideration for our nonprofits to do their good deeds and their good work, that we might consider a 50% fee waiver, but certainly not 100%. I only bring that up because it's been the policy of the past. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Bill, what are the details of this project? What's he trying to accomplish here?
This is going to be a 12-unit complex located in Thermalito off of Paula Court for individuals that are suffering from some sort of mental illness and also are homeless. Mr. Reed is trying to create a facility to get these people back to a safer way of living, to shepherd them to that. So that's what this project is. This project is, in its theory, it's a good project. Even with the partial fee waiver, though, I'm going to have to caution you that the SB 925, even with a partial, you're going to subject them to prevailing wage. So anytime you can't waive fees on stuff like this without causing significant issues for the people that are doing them. It's not a matter of we want the money or we don't think it's a valuable project or anything else. Quite honestly, this project is going to heavily impact the city. This is a project where it will use a lot of public safety services. It's just the nature of what it is, and it's no one's fault. It's just how these things work. So it's not that we're chasing this money doggedly and don't want to give it up. It's just I believe it's really going to cause them much more significant issues by doing this for them than just, quite honestly, paying these. If the council wanted to look at changing your fee structure in the future, that's something that you can do. But to do anything with this is going to subject them to a prevailing wage issue.
And in response to Councilmember Pittman, this is a relatively new law, as you might expect, pushed by the labor unions.
Well, I personally, I just want an explanation for everyone. I personally know that we can't set a precedence of this. This will open a floodgate. And that is how the city's trying to pull out of a hole. We can't start giving things away when you find yourself in a hole. Quit digging and start climbing. So I welcome the project, but I also welcome the fees. Councilmember Goodson.
You're absolutely right. We welcome the fees, and if we do for one, we're going to have to do it for everyone else.
Councilmember Draper.
Well, I'm in agreement that we would be shooting him in the foot if we defrayed the fees, and so I'm not for that. I would like to say here for the record, from the information in the packet, David Scrooby, an Oroville resident, it says donated the building site for this.
That's true.
So that's where the site came from. Thank you.
Correct. Yeah. No, Mr. Scrooby has been a very ardent supporter of a lot of very good projects in Oroville, and he's my experience with him, he's been a very good man.
Thank you. Looking for a motion.
I move that we deny Mr. Reed's request to waive the fees in the total amount of $89,979.96.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 13, to establish an ad hoc committee to review and make recommendations to council regarding the selection of Citizen Oversight Committee. So it's my duty to appoint 3 council members to an ad hoc committee to pick the citizens for the Oversight Committee. And I've chosen Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Pittman, and Councilmember Hatley. Councilmember Goodson.
So I'd like to weigh in on this and just give some background. In 2019, Councilwoman Draper and I, as we were campaigning, a part of our campaign was advocacy for the Measure R. We went door to door, had boots on the ground, handed out flyers in support of Measure R, which was, as we all know, a sales tax increase. The rest is history. 2016, the voters did not approve of that. Fast forward, during this past campaign season, members of the prior existing council, we advocated for, and we did some very heavy lifting in the midst of great opposition in regards to the Measure U, the 1% sales tax. The voters did approve that, and with the stipulation that the council members were to put in place a Citizens Oversight Committee, and that was to ensure that the council would be good stewards of those monies. With that being said, this is a very important item, approximately $4 to $4.5 million to be exact. I believe that it would be in the best interest of the city and of the city's residents for all the eyes and ears of every city council person to be on deck, going through each application in order to ensure that this committee, this oversight committee, be diverse, it be inclusive, and I believe it needs to reflect and represent the face of our communities within the city's parameters. I believe that this would be the most fair and the most equitable process for all. And I know that in the past, all council members weighed in on any application process for all committees, and I do not see a reason to change a viable process that has worked efficiently and expeditiously in the past without incident.
Thank you. Any other members? Councilmember Draper.
Well, I understand the desire to make this process as streamlined as possible. I also would encourage the mayor and the council to consider that the more of us, I think, that have input into this process, that we're going to get a more representative group to be on that committee. And we want 9 individuals who are going to represent the whole town. And I feel that if we all have input into that selection process, we have a better chance of getting that.
Thank you. Are there any public speakers?
There are none.
I need to clarify that in your previous item, and I hadn't caught this, Jackie actually caught it, item number 7 of your formation of the committee said that the selection members shall be conducted through an ad hoc committee made up of 3 council members. Recommendations submitted to council for final approval. I did not catch that. Jackie did.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I kind of agree with the statement that was mentioned. I think it's by our mayor, is that we have a great team, a great committee that's in place now. And I believe that. I truly believe that. And being said, you know, how much time would it take for the totality, the whole group, to come up, you know, to get together and review these applications? And diversity is what I heard. You know, we need everyone's input. You know, your educated opinions and your relationships with the many people that you service in your communities. And just allowing just 3 people, we're going to miss a great swath of individuals, potential individuals that can be a great asset to what we're trying to accomplish in our city. So please consider, you know, come together, you know, as a team, review the applications together as a whole, and come up with the best qualified people to help give directions and directives to our city. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
In case it wasn't clear, the appointments do have to be approved by the full council. There's an ad hoc committee, but the full council must approve.
Yes. Okay, so my appointments are Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Pittman, and Councilmember Hatley to be approved by council.
Mr. Mayor, just if I may just ask a question real quick, and that is, where are we on that process? How many folks have actually applied?
11.
So we're above the 9 now.
I do plan on publishing it out one more time out to the public to try to get more applicants so that we can have as diverse of a board as possible. And so after the creation of the bylaws tonight, my plan was to send it out again for one more push to try to get more applicants.
So that's great news. I mean, that's wonderful, because before I think we just had 1 or none. So that's great.
Thank you. We don't vote on that, do we?
Mayor?
No.
You got a speaker.
Oh, you got a speaker. Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. Okay, so we will review the applicants, and then all the applicants then will be forwarded to the full council to look at, or only the ones that we pick, the 9 people we pick?
The idea would be
we pick.
Right. The idea would be is that you would review all of the applicants, and then the ad hoc committee would make a recommendation to the full council.
Mm-hmm. And majority of the ad hoc would be, let's say, 2 people didn't want, and 1 did, wanted that person be looked at by the whole council. Would it be majority rules? Is that the way that it would work? That person then would just automatically be eliminated? Or
I don't think there's any set rules on how that's going to work when the ad hoc committee looks at this. I would hope to think that everybody would look through all of them, put them in a pile, which ones are their definite yeses, which ones are their maybes, which ones are their nos, and then negotiate from there. But I would assume if it came right down to it, a 2-1 vote would prevail to the final recommendation.
Because the problem that I have is this, and even though I'm on this committee, but something this important, and this is an important committee, I think every person up here should be able to have a say and look at that and at least hear their thoughts on the people that we're looking at for this position, or for these positions. And then the majority could rule. But just to take three members, because maybe we maybe we will overlook somebody that, for whatever reason, and I'm not saying to be malicious or anything, but I mean, it could happen that somebody would get overlooked, and where somebody might bring something up and say, wait a minute, I happen to know a background, or I happen to know something about them that might be beneficial to this process. And so to me, I'm, and I appreciate the mayor, placing me on this, but again, my heart tells me that it should be this whole council has a chance to look at them, because we shouldn't, if we're going to put somebody on here who is going to make recommendations to us, to this council, then the body as a whole should have a say in who those people are. And that's just my opinion.
I think there may be some middle ground on this, that if we go through the ad hoc committee process, and this would have to come from council direction, is that when this is brought back, that all applications are brought back, and this is brought back as not a consent item, but as regular business, so that if there is any of that input or discussion that needs to come from the entire council, because the council may be happy with what they're presented, but they may not. So, I mean, there is some, it's a potential compromise, but we have to have that direction from you, how you'd like to do this.
I feel like they were left out of the process.
So I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Who set up this process, this ad hoc committee?
Are you happy or unhappy with it?
Because it was Jackie. I'm fine with it. I will facilitate my duties, whatever they are, no matter what committee or what position I'm given. I will facilitate them.
Ad hoc is Latin for this purpose only, so it's just a term that is used for a committee. So it's just for this purpose. The idea of the ad hoc in this, I believe, comes from the bylaws that are associated that you adopted earlier. It's actually in those bylaws that an ad hoc committee will. So that's where this came from.
Thank you. I just want everyone to know I don't pick these processes. I simply have to facilitate them. And these decisions are tough. I mean, we have good people, but in the end, a decision has to be made. And I don't think you elected someone to sit up here and be weak and mealy mouth about making the decision. I'll take it on the chin for whatever decision I make. So,
yes, sir.
I'm in the queue, but I don't know who's next.
You are, Councilmember Draper. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I wasn't sure. I really like that idea of the compromise, and I appreciate Councillor Hatley's comments, because I do feel that this is a very important committee with a great responsibility, and so I feel like we all need to be included in this whole thing. So if it's to the point where the three on the committee make recommendations, but all of the applications are brought forward and it's not on the consent agenda, so that we all then can have some input, then I don't have a problem with that at all.
And
but
I'm sorry.
I'm just almost done, but one other thing. This is the first time we've ever had to go through this ad hoc thing for council appointments to committees and commissions. And so before, we were all given equal input. And so that was, part of our concern.
We borrowed these bylaws. We didn't write them. They're not new. So that's where this come from. It isn't something that
I know, but in the past, for committee assignments, we have not done this.
Correct.
This probably answers your question, though, because it says recommendations to council. So the full council does get to vote. And you could bring in a name from left field if you got 4 votes.
We pick a committee, they pick the names, they bring it to the council, and then we pick the people, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
And it's a recommendation, so that you, in fact, could take those names. You could even ask for another name. It takes full council approval. So
and we did do this once just before, at least recently with the Planning Commission.
That's what I'm talking about. That's this new council. But historically, we have not done this that way.
And I'll wear part of that, because historically, as I've said here, and I've watched this
for the 2 years that
right.
I've known.
Yeah, no, for the many years that it's went on, is somebody will come in and you have a planning commission opening. 5 individuals show up at a council meeting, and what happens is there's going to be 14 questions. It goes this direction, it goes that direction. The council really, it's kind of the lame generic questions that you always get, and I don't know as though you get a real sense or feel of who the person is, and it's a very cumbersome, labor intensive process that takes quite a while. So as I've looked at this, one of my thoughts is that in order to expedite the process would be to select part of the council to make a recommendation to the whole council. So that's if I
understand that. I do, but by the same token, that's why we ran for these seats. Correct. And that's why we're here.
Yes,
we
ma'am.
want to do oversight, and we don't want to take the easy way out.
No.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just a comment. I think it's a part of it's being expeditious in, sorting through this. And I think with 3, first of all, you don't have the Brown Act in play. Because bottom line is I'm on the committee, and this is going to take my time. But I think once you open it up to the entire council, and correct me if I'm wrong, then that means it's going to be a public meeting. We're going to be vetting people's personal, because it's a process. It's like going for a job interview. And I think that the folks that have probably submitted their applications would appreciate a little bit more of a private dynamic. I've been through these processes in hiring folks, and I know what this entails. And I just think it just provides a little bit more privacy for the 11 folks at this point that have submitted. So, and I think that there's some trust that certainly that the balance of the council is going to, extend here. But given that, if all of the applicants are then allowed for everyone to be seen, then those questions can be brought. But I think that just for that, again, for the process to move along. Otherwise, my goodness, we could be here like we are now, conversing this for quite some time. I just think it makes sense to have an ad hoc committee to get through this, to preserve privacy as we go through people's personal applications. So that's just my weight on it.
Councilmember Goodson.
So I believe one compromise might be, because I believe that this is going to pass, that those members that have not been chosen to be on this committee, that we be sent, that those applications be scanned, and we at least get to be privy to the full volume of the applicants, so that in the event that that recommendation comes before open session, if we do, if one of us may hesitate on one of the recommendations, then as you said, we can make our own recommendation.
Isn't that a violation of the Brown Act?
No, as long as it's not at an open council meeting.
Okay, but she's saying it'd be sent to each member.
You would have to receive it as part of a council packet. I mean, so and all of these applications are going to be public. I mean, if you don't want your information known, don't get involved in this, because it is.
Believe me,
we have to put that out there. So that's yeah. So everybody should be prepared for that. I mean, not that I'm trying to discourage anybody. I just don't want them to think that there's some. This is government. There is no privacy.
Right.
We have to be as transparent as we possibly can.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me.
So, Mr. Mayor, move forward with the ad hoc committee, meet, review, and then bring this back as a regular item with all of the applications. Is that the direction that we're getting?
Yes, but I believe that the ad hoc committee should sort the applicants out, because I'm sure that there are some people that would love to be involved that would not want to be told no in public.
Well, they're going to be sorted, and a recommendation is going to be made to the council.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to item number 15, appointments to council and local committees.
Mr. Mayor, we still have item number 14, which would be the citizen appointments to the Southside Community Center.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So do we have applicants, or have we advertised this, or?
We have not advertised it. We received, the county did advertise it and received several applications, and then what they did is they appointed from the list of folks that they had available, and then they forwarded us the other applications with the, wasn't instruction, but the advice of we could do one of two things. We can select from the folks that are already applied, or we can open it up and take more applications and then select.
How many applicants did they choose from?
I believe the county had 6, and they appointed 3 and sent us the 3 that were not selected by the county.
Okay. And we need to appoint 3?
Jackie says yes.
3? Okay.
We have 3 applications.
All right. Well, do we need to hear from the applicants, or what? They're not here?
I don't believe any of the applicants are here, so
you have the list and I don't.
I know them.
Who are the applicants, please?
I believe it was Lisa Torres, Mr. Spranger.
Spenger.
He's here.
Yeah.
You want to talk to him?
And Earl Lewis.
And who was it? Earl Lewis?
Earl Lewis.
And Mr. Earl Lewis.
And these applicants were picked by the county?
They made application to the county to be part of the advisory oversight committee for the Southside Community Center. They were not selected.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't really know any of these people. I don't know what their duties would be. I'm looking for some input here.
If you would like, we could. I'm sorry. Go.
I do know each one of these people. They are community. They're community activists. They're always involved. You know, you have a community. You have people on social media that talk, and then you always have a nucleus that roll up their sleeves. You can call them 24/7, and they're available. Fred Spenger is here, and he's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what we could do is, if the council would like, is we could reschedule this for the next council meeting and have them here to introduce themselves and answer any questions that the council has, if that's what the council would like to do. Or we can, you know, your options are simple. You can do that. You can appoint them right now, or you can put it back out, take more applications, and appoint folks at a later date. It's council pleasure.
There's no deadline on this, right?
They are in need of somebody as soon as possible. They were looking for somebody for their last meeting, and we weren't able to provide that because we didn't even get the list till after the meeting was already scheduled.
Okay. We do have some. I personally would like, if someone's going to apply for something, I would like them to show up and introduce themselves. So and not, I don't know any of them, and have no input one way or the other. But I would certainly like to know who I'm appointing to what.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, you do have one speaker.
Have one speaker?
There's one public speaker, Bobby O'Reilly.
Good evening again, as I thought I was done. So this, as was stated, was not shared with the community as an opening or as you guys looking for applicants for this position. I had no idea until I seen it on the council, as did many others who expressed some interest in doing this. The 3 applicants that I believe Ms. Goodson has are also 3 board members of the Southside Community Center.
No, not at all. None of them are.
None of them are board members? Okay. Well, I know that all 3 of them have a very large involvement with the board and what goes on there, and that's fine. I'm not saying anything negative about that. My concern is that it was not shared to the community, and we didn't know that that was an opening that was going on.
Madam Clerk, was there advertisement done in the city as well as the county?
There was not. I was not aware that these positions needed to be filled until the county contacted me and supplied me with what you have in front of you.
And this is a county-run facility?
It is, but the committee that is in question is made up of 3 members from the county that the county selects from the public, and 3 that the city selects from the public.
Okay. Well, the city would like to see more advertisement and applicants, and not doubting anyone on anything, just simply unaware of what's happening here. Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, that's really my concern too. Is our appointments that we make, are they required to be city residents?
So there's a few different requirements. I think the list that you have in your packet states one is a community entity member, one lives in the community, and one is of the South Side area. So there are different requirements for the different positions. The applicants in front of you do meet those requirements, but again, we are not the ones that advertised out for those positions.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I hate to appoint somebody to a position that isn't a valid appointment for us to make. And this is the first time I've ever been aware of this process for this facility. I kind of think that we kind of owe a debt to the citizens of Oroville to advertise the positions if someone in the city of Oroville is interested. I mean, I don't see any problem with the applicants we have here, but I, again, feel that if we're going to ask for volunteers, we ought to ask for volunteers wide open.
Well, if me personally, if I'm putting my name on this, I want to know what the process is and what's going on. That's why if I seem a little upset, it's because I'm caught off guard on this. I want to know more about it. So I would like to see advertisement. Councilmember Goodson.
So I have a question for you, Jackie. Were these positions advertised on the Butte County website?
I'm not sure. The only information I have is that the gal that is the representative from the county that's responsible to this committee sent me an email telling me that the positions they realized that our positions had been vacant for a while and were letting us know that we needed to get them filled, that they had advertised out their positions. They didn't say how they advertised them out or how they collected the applications. They just provided me with the ones that they said that they didn't select of theirs.
And I guess I want to make it clear the staff is just requesting direction. We're not saying appoint these folks. If you read the recommendation, it's or advertise.
And I'd like to see it on the city website or something that's not going to be any cost to the city, but at least put it out there so the citizens of the city are aware of it as well. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just reading this letter from Jackie, the staff report, it states here, attached are 3 applicants that applied for the committee through Butte County Board of Supervisors, and a list of which agencies sit on the committee and who appoint citizens to the committee. So there's nothing here giving us a background as to were they vetted, do they meet the criteria of the selection process. Just that these are applications being forwarded on to us. So I think, again, just to echo what you've already shared, I think that we need to go through that process of opening this up.
Thank you. I believe there are no more comments. So direction is I'd like to see this advertised on the city website and agendized for the next meeting, next council meeting. So moving on to 15, appointments to council and local committees. All right, again, this is a very tough spot. You're trying, everyone's busy. You're trying to adjust for interests and schedules, and but doing homework and research and finding out what council members were interested in, and trying to spread the duties evenly, because I believe that we were elected to serve, and when we serve, we need to do it evenly. So I haven't consulted with these council members, but I have assigned them to these committees. We've got airport land use. We've got Janet Goodson, Linda Draper.
Do we have dates, times?
You do. You will be provided with them. We will have discussions afterward, I can guarantee you. Arts Commission, Linda Draper, and alternate Art Hatley. BCAG, Butte County Association of Governments. That'll be me for the primary and Scott Thompson for the alternate. Butte County Air Quality Control Board. That will be me for the primary and Scott Thompson for the alternate. Butte County Water Advisory Board. Janet Goodson, primary. Eric Smith, alternate. Chamber of Commerce. Primary will be Scott Thompson, David Pittman for alternate. Citizens Oversight Committee. Primary we need two primaries. That'll be Scott Thompson, Eric Smith, alternate Dave Pittman. Butte County Continuum Care, Linda Draper. Executive Committee Intergovernmental. That requires 3. That'll be me, Chuck Reynolds, David Pittman, Eric Smith. League of California Cities. That'll be me as the primary and Art Hatley as the alternate. Loan Advisory, Housing, and Economic Development. It takes 3 primaries. Linda Draper, David Pittman, Eric Smith. Downtown Oroville Business Association, Program Specialist. Oroville Recreation Area Committee. Primary will be Art Hatley, alternates Janet Goodson. Supplemental Benefit Committee. That'll be me, Scott Thompson, and David Pittman. Sewage Commission. That'll be me and David Pittman. Sustainable Groundwater Management. Janet Goodson, alternate Eric Smith. Stage will be Scott Thompson. Tourism will be Eric Smith. Veteran Memorial Park will be Art Hatley. Those are my assignments. Thank you. Reports, discussions, correspondence. Any council announcements or reports?
I have one that's just more advisory for folks, but we've started the initial discussions for the 4th of July fireworks. The group is hoping to have it again at the Thurbolito 4-Bay location, and there's a huge amount of agencies that get together on that, and I just part of that committee. I just want to advise everybody that we're going to start working on that actually next week. So the other advantage to this is at the Nelson Ballpark facility, there becomes the opportunity for more vendors, especially for service clubs, to have a booth out there and kind of make it a full day experience. That went well last year, and it may again be good for this year. So heads up to that process, and it'll be on 4th of July. So we'll keep you advised, but I just want to let you know that the meetings have started.
Councilmember Draper.
February 25th, I attended the Butte County Homeless Continuum of Care meeting, and they discussed the awards from the HEAP funding and the process that was involved with that. There were some concerns expressed about how some of those scorings were made. So I ended up on a subcommittee, also known as an ad hoc committee, and we met March 4th about some of the loose ends on that, and we're meeting again tomorrow morning at 11. February 26th, I attended the Arts Commission meeting, and February 28th, the Planning Commission meeting, and that's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
So tomorrow I'm going to Wyandotte Academy, and I'm going to read the Lorax. And then I'm going to share with the kids the amazing proclamation that you read about Arbor Day. And I just want to encourage all of our citizens to read to kids. It's so important. It's the gate, it's the gateway, it's the door to all things education. And I just have a personal place in my heart for that. So I'm just excited about the opportunity to read the kiddos at Wyandotte Academy. And I'm also dragging along Kent Fowler, who is a board member of FERPID, Feather River Parks District. And so we're going to encourage the kids about all things concerning trees and conservation and the blessing that we have living here in Oroville.
Thank you. Councilmember Draper.
I'm just trying to get that to turn off. Sorry.
Okay, future agenda items. None?
One, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There was an item that wasn't approved by the SBF going up to Table Mountain, the fence.
Yes, sir.
If we could bring that to here regarding, I know that, we only have about 400 roughly, I think we heard tonight, left on the RDA funds. So that was an item that was important to the SBF, but it was consented that was better used with the RDA. So I'd like to see that item brought here to the council to be discussed, to have that project potentially move forward.
Yes, sir. We'll bring it at the next council meeting.
Let me add to that discussion too, the idea of solar lighting on that walkway along with the fencing is probably a great idea, because that's, even though there's street lights on the other side of that hillside, the walkway is not lighted at all. And if we're going to make it be an attractive walkway, let's also look at solar street lights, and they're actually getting down in price. I saw some of those over in Clear Lake not too recently, and they really look nice.
Thank you.
And just to echo what Mr. Pittman, Councilmember Pittman, that was also what was discussed with the SBF, is we'd like to see, if they're going to do it, we'd like to see it lit.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So anyone else for, Councilmember Pittman?
No, that was me.
Councilmember Draper.
I was just going to mention a few minutes ago that I have been contacted by some constituents who are concerned about fluoride in the water here, and the city pays Cal Water, I think it's like $40,000 a year to put fluoride in the water. And so these individuals plan to come to the next meeting and talk about this. So do I have a second to get that on the agenda? Okay.
I'll caution you though, the city had an election to do that. We'd have to reverse the election.
Oh, it has to go to the ballot?
1958, there was a citywide election to mandate fluoride be put in the water.
Okay. Well, she and the others, I think, are still interested in broaching this subject, so I'm willing to listen.
Sure.
And I think it's important. We actually just recently called Thermalito water, where I drink my water, and there's no fluoride out there.
So, Councilperson Draper, you're asking that to be on as a presentation?
I think that was what they had in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe 10 minutes,
okay.
Not real lengthy.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I'm sure Cal Water has the research on that requirement, because the city required them to do it.
Yeah, but here's the thing that's interesting. If you're a child and your teeth are developing, fluoride is helpful. But once you're an adult, fluoride really doesn't do anything for you. It's just an additional chemical. So this is their position. So I thought it would be interesting to hear what they have to say.
Okay, moving on to administration reports. Clockwise.
I have nothing.
I attended a BCAG meeting on Friday, and I learned it was a budget meeting for BCAG, and I learned that we're going to get a much larger allocation for our transportation and transit funds next year by the tune of about $321,000 more than we got this year. So we'll be looking to budget for that next year.
Nice.
It hasn't gone to their board yet, but that was just the preliminary worksheet that I saw, which is really good. It was a different way they allocate. So Paradise is getting more, Chico's getting more, we're getting more, the county's getting more. So it was a good thing.
Thank you, Ruth. Anyone else?
Just a couple things, Mr. Mayor. One is the Gary and Tom both made me aware that the Ross grand opening is going to be this Saturday, 3/9/2019 at 9 a.m. They're asking to have the mayor and the council there. They would like you there a little bit early, 8:45 or so, to do the ribbon cutting. That's really about all the details that I have on that. Gary may have more. He's been really super excited about Ross, so he'll probably know. The other item I wanted to bring to your attention is our streets crew and our parks crew. That's made up of 3 people. Over the last 42 days since the beginning of the year, they have been filling potholes in the city. They've done that for approximately 20 of their work days. They've filled over 1,100 potholes in the city. So I just wanted to, send out to them, thank you, and just let the council know what a good job they are doing on that. I understand it's a tremendous issue out there, and that we have deteriorating roads everywhere. The news that Ruth shared, extra 380,000 or 50,000. What was the number?
25.
No, that's close. It's 321. There was a 3 in it. So
3s and 2s.
Yeah. That money's going to be, it's allocated, is specifically purposed for roads. So you'll be seeing more road repair with that. So, good things are beginning to happen. But I just want to make sure those guys know, and those the men and women of the Parks and Trees Department and also the Street Department know we do appreciate them. And we often give them a hard time because oftentimes there's one and we want to know what all they're doing. But, we really do appreciate them. We want them to know how much we really appreciate the efforts that they have made.
Absolutely. I actually see some of the results of the potholes being filled and really appreciate it. I was approached today in the lobby of council by some citizens, and they had brought up Norton Street by the high school. Norton Street is it's not a pothole. It's a place where you could lose a Volkswagen. So that's going to require some engineering. So what we'll do is when we make it through that area, we will make it as safe as we can until it's engineered, and the street is going to have to be redone.
And Mayor, adding to that conversation, certainly I would hope that the Oversight Committee allocates a fairly substantial portion to road repairs and repavement.
Yes.
There is one quick item that I'm just going to mention, and I'm going to look at the city attorney today, and I'm wondering if you could find us a legal intern that could fix the Elgin Street problem. Elgin Street problem is a huge mess. It is a private road that is considered a city street.
Yes.
But it's listed as not end of county maintained road. And we're going to need to find some legal way to deal with that. And I'm going to say you probably need a legal intern. He could probably create his whole career over this problem because it's been going on for a long time. And it might be a nice specialty for some young legal intern to figure out how to fix that one.
I would hope to have some way of managing getting your arms around that problem without making a whole career out of it for somebody.
Well, it's been there since 1917. That's
how long
the problem's been there. So
I will speak with Scott about selecting somebody to do some preliminary
that would be
research,
helpful.
And then Scott can give you a report back.
I don't think anybody in this room is not going to agree that it needs to be fixed. I mean, I did see a Volkswagen lost in that hole out there. I drove it the other days.
I'd be happy to help you with that.
Mr.
Ritchie.
Attorney. Yes, Mr. Ritchie.
Sub for Mr. Huber, thank you.
Well, you saw me. I was trying to think of Mr. Attorney, actually. Yeah, any reports?
No reports from us at the moment. Yeah, everything's been communicated through the packet or enclosed. It's connected to other matters that are confidential in nature at this point.
Mr. Lehman.
Ross did receive its first final inspection today. Is not complete, has a few items that they have to get fixed up, but once again, as the grand opening will be this Saturday, soft opening Friday. We did have the first meeting with Caltrans and the developers in that for the northwest corner of Feather River Boulevard and Oro Dam Boulevard for projects that's going to be coming in the near future for that development. So that is starting in the works, and we're getting a head start on it with Caltrans, so to prevent any delays in the construction process.
Thank you.
One bit of information too to add is the Highway 70 project. Caltrans has added a new separate satellite office here in town behind Tractor Supply. That will be their headquarters for the Highway 70 project, and people are in the building now.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence? None? Okay, well, that adjourns this city council meeting. Next meeting will be March 19th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. will be closed session. Thank you.